Okay, and one of the other new features that's common to both the iPhone 10 and the iPhone 8 family is the True Tone display. That basically is, you can think of it as white balance. It measures the ambient light and works out what shade of how bright it is or what sort of shade it is. So if it's incandescent light or fluorescent light or outdoor sunlight, it will automatically adjust the screen's colour to match. So everything looks white on the screen, no matter what your ambient light looks like. That's a feature which already existed on some of the iPad Pro models, all except my one. So now it's appearing on the iPhones as well. The significant advantage of the iPhone 10 in this area is the display is based on organic LED technology rather than liquid crystal display, and that gives it blacker blacks, sharper colours, consumes less power while it's displaying mostly black, and it also supports high dynamic range (HDR), which would improve the colours and the sort of contrast even further. Okay, chip, yada yada, or the neural engine. So the other unique feature that the iPhone 10 has got is the Face ID feature. So it doesn't have a home button, and it uses recognising your face as a 3D model. So it actually has projects little infrared dots on your face and works out depth accurately and that sort of thing. And it's we haven't seen it in action apart from demos and things yet, but it's...
Apparently the word is that sucks all the battery.
Well, nobody's actually got one of these phones yet, so how could they know? I don't think it would actually, but we'll have to wait and see. There's not information. Another new feature that applies to both the new models is a thing called portrait lighting. So you already had portrait mode on the iPhone 7, which allows you to take a photo on the 7 Plus, sorry. Which allows you to take a photo using the rear cameras. It's got dual cameras, and it's able to focus differently on the foreground and background and automatically blur the background. So you get the person in the foreground in sharp focus and a nicely muted background effect. What portrait lighting does is it also allows you to add lighting effects to the person's face, so you can actually simulate a studio lighting environment. So you can have them brightly lit or lit from different angles or something like that. And you can change it after you've taken the photo. So you can actually play with it and get just the effect you want, not having to worry about it on the spot. I think that one's unique to the Plus model and the iPhone 10. It's not on the iPhone 8. Unfortunately, I can't do a four-way comparison here. So it does faster video. I thought it already did... No, they don't say that. Okay, I thought there was an extra faster video there, but they seem to have got rid of that point. The 7 Plus has got, sorry, the 10 has got, that's the front camera. You can also take selfies with the portrait effect with the iPhone 10, but you can't with the iPhone 8 Plus. So there's one extra feature it's got there. There's new buzzword compliance buried in the middle of there somewhere. Bluetooth version 5 instead of Bluetooth version 4. There you go, there's one. And it's got more international GPS compatible systems. So Galileo is the European location satellite system. So it supports even more of them, which means it's going to be even more accurate and faster at getting a location fix for GPS fixes and things like that, if you're away from Wi-Fi networks. Okay, anybody have any questions about the iPhone models? The iPhone 8 is already available. I've briefly seen one in a shop and didn't do much with it. Oh yeah, it looks like an iPhone.
One of my workmates has just bought the Plus.
Yep.
Brought it into work today for a case.
If anybody has seen the last couple of days, there's been some rather hyperbolic articles saying that there's been some iPhone 8 Pluses, I think, in Asia, which have arrived with the case popped open with a swollen battery. The first articles I saw about that were saying, oh my god, it's really, really bad. And then in small print at the bottom, this has happened to 2 of them. The more reasonably written articles are saying 2 iPhone 8 Pluses have been reported as having done this out of in the order of 20 million shipped. And this is within perfectly normal tolerance failure rates, sort of infant mortality, and also they expanded without burning, which is the problem with the Galaxy Note 7s that did this. They couldn't expand the battery and they caught fire instead, which is much more dangerous. And they exploded, yes. So at the moment, Apple's investigating. I would not be at all concerned about it because it's probably just bad luck with a couple of them. And they'll get replaced under warranty, of course, so there's no problem.
Especially if they've just bought them and they just bought them from the
Yeah,
retailer.
and
The
they
retailer
arrived
straight
like
away.
that, so yeah. Okay, any questions on the iPhone? So that's pretty much all I wanted to say on them otherwise.
Oh, actually, there's a picture of it right there.
Yeah, 'cause, well, one of them, the other one was more dramatic, but yeah. Okay, so I've already covered most of the details there. The Apple Watch, as I mentioned in my article, the whiz-bang feature of the Apple Watch Series 3 that has just been announced is it now has the ability to operate as basically a cellular phone when you haven't got your phone with you. The catch is, we don't get that model in New Zealand. So right now, Apple has introduced a third generation Apple Watch series, which is the same capability-wise as the second generation in New Zealand, and until such time as they add support for more countries, you won't be able to get a cellular Apple Watch in New Zealand. So it's of completely no interest to me at this point. I've got a zeroth generation Apple Watch effectively, because they've now got the original ones and then series 1, 2, 3. At some point I'll upgrade my watch, but I'm not in any hurry to do so. The first one still works fine. So eventually.
Dave, the watches, are they, what's the battery or low capacity?
They have a battery which tends to last, basically in my experience, if I'm not using it heavily, I'm not playing with it all the time, it tends to last just over 2 days on average. And this is now a 2.5-year-old watch, or 2-year-old, I think I got it 2 years ago. And it hasn't changed much in that time. So I charge it every night. Sometimes I miss the charger and it's not actually plugged in properly, and it starts to warn me towards the end of the second day that it needs to be charged soon. So it's perfectly usable as long as you take your watch off at night and charge it.
I think under heavy use, mine's got down to about 47%.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the moment, it's sitting on 60 mine at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a day's use.
That's one disadvantage of the cellular watches. The cellular feature is intended for light use. It's not intended as a replacement for your phone. So, for example, you can go for a run with your watch on, not take your phone with you, and if somebody needs to call you or send you a message, you can just do something brief on it. You should not be expecting to make half-hour phone calls on your watch. Yeah, so it's just intended for brief usage and data updates while you're away and that sort of thing. So it's not intended as a heavy phone replacement. And it's also worth pointing out, even if you can get one of those cellular watches, you still need to own a compatible iPhone. It's not totally independent. It still syncs with the iPhone and various things like that. Also, don't expect to buy one overseas and bring it to New Zealand, because it only works in the country you bought it. It's linked to the carriers and they have complicated arrangements for supporting it, so don't expect to buy one overseas. Apple TV, there's a new model which has got, if you have a 4K television and you haven't got an Apple TV yet, it's probably worth buying a new model. If you don't have a 4K television, or especially if you've already got a 4th generation Apple TV, probably isn't a lot of point buying the new model, because it's just a minor update of the previous one with support for higher quality graphics. People who have got one have said, oh my God, my photos look so much better now, because the TV is able to display the full resolution of the photo, whereas it couldn't before. So it's potentially useful, but unless you've gone to the trouble of buying a 4K TV, I don't think it's worth the effort. And as I've mentioned in my article, the bastards still haven't implemented Siri in New Zealand, so it's not as usable as it is in every other country. I don't know why. I think it's mainly because they haven't got TV. Apple hasn't got any TV content available in New Zealand either. Well, that's not Apple's fault. That's TVNZ being brain dead.
TVNZ being bloody mindless.
Okay, so if there's no questions on that, then what I'm going to do now is switch to iOS 11 and find the right adapter first of all, so I can actually plug into my projector. That's not it. Try that one. That's not it either. Try that one. That's better.
How long will we be able to sit with the older type computers?
Sorry?
How long can we sit with the older type computers?
I mean, how long will Apple keep supporting these things? I don't see any major sign of them getting rid of them. If anything, with the new operating system for the iPhone, the iPad's actually inherited features from the Mac. It's sort of like we've had several years where macOS has been sort of becoming iOSified. Now we're getting iOS becoming Macified. So they're sort of merging slowly.
It's just older, well, it's 18 years old.
It's basically give you the option whether you want a Mac or do you want an iPad or an iPhone.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want a Mac,
Right.
use an iPad. And,
Okay.
You know, the only thing is storage, basically.
So, there we are, that's legible enough. There's iOS 11 running on my...
General question as well.
Yep.
How many folk are likely to be staying for supper?
How many what?
What's that?
Staying for supper?
4 or 5, yeah. Yep.
Okay, pretty good. I've got to prepare it, so.
Okay, now if I go to Apple's webpage just so I can refresh my memory on the features, because once you start using something it's hard to remember what was new and what wasn't. iOS 11, there we go, so I've got that to refer to. Okay, so first thing I noticed when I upgraded to iOS 11 is the App Store icon had changed. You notice it in the third row there on the right side, it sort of looks a little bit more chunky than it did before. And if you actually go into App Store, if it'll let me, it looks considerably different.
Phone, is this the phone, iOS 11?
Yep.
Phone, not on the iPad.
I'm looking at the phone first because the phone is a subset of the features of the iPad. I'll start with the phone and move to the iPad shortly. So they've got this new Today view, and you'll also notice this bold heading at the top there saying Today. That's a sort of a theme they're now adopting in several of the applications that are standard on the phone. So this Today view gives you a kind of sort of dynamically updated every day. They'll have new stuff on it, advertising and sort of highlighting some useful bits and pieces and things like that. So I don't think I've even bothered to look at it. It doesn't interest me sort of browsing the App Store constantly, finding out what's new. They have, along the bottom, you'll notice there's now a games and an apps section. They've actually partitioned them so that rather than being games and other apps all mixed together in one rather complicated view, they are separated so that people who like playing games on their iOS devices have a dedicated section, and people who have no interest in games don't even need to see them. So you can go into games and see all the entertainment stuff, or go into apps and see everything else. So.
It just breaks it down for you.
Yeah, so that helps, I think, to organise things a bit better. And this has all got sort of scrollable areas and so on as it did before, and it's got some highlighted sections in there. That's just the browsing section. You can, of course, search for stuff, search by type as before. And one thing I've noticed, I probably haven't gotten the updates. Let's just see if there are any new ones since yesterday. Yes, there we are. One thing I have noticed is it doesn't tell you how big the updates are anymore. So if you're used to deciding, I've only got this much internet bandwidth left, I don't want to download anything big, you can't find out anymore. There's no way to tell how big the update's going to be. You just tap the download button and it goes.
When you start the download, does it show you?
No,
No.
gives you a circle of filling in as it did before.
That's it.
What you can do is go and look at the app description, which tells you how big the entire app is. That doesn't tell you how big the download for the update is. It just gives you a maximum that it might be. The other related feature is if you're downloading updates over a cellular network, the limit has increased from 100 megabytes to 150. So the biggest app updates that can be downloaded over cellular are 150 megabytes now. But otherwise it's pretty much similar, except the detail missing, it's similar. I've also found that it doesn't seem to be refreshing automatically for me. I have to keep manually refreshing it to see that there's new updates. I think that's just a timing issue that I might only check once a day or something like that. So I won't bother updating anything. You're familiar with what it looks like in older versions. It's similar enough. So that was one thing I noticed. So if I go and look at mail as another example, you'll see that again the big bold heading at the top there, all in boxes. Yep. Then I think contacts, does contacts do it as well? No, yeah, it does. So again, it's got, if I go right back to the top again, because I was halfway down, it's got the contacts heading. So it's a similar sort of style they've used all over the place. That was actually introduced last year on iOS 10 in music. It had a big bold heading, and they've basically replicated that look everywhere else. So let me just have a quick glance through here. I don't care about the iPad features yet. Refresh my memory. Multitasking. On the iPhone, this doesn't look much different than it did before. We'll come back and look at it on the iPad in a minute. However, Control Center looks considerably different now. So this is the thing you get when you swipe up from the bottom of the screen. this is the new control centre. So first point is there's more things in there. That's because I've already customised mine. You can actually add more stuff to it rather than it being a fixed set of features. And if you're used to the iOS 10 version, it was previously organised on 3 different pages you had to swipe between to get all the music controls and some other things. It's now all buried on a single page. The top left-hand block there is all your network interfaces, airplane mode. There's a new one there for turning on and off cellular data and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And it's worth pointing out while I'm thinking about it that those buttons no longer actually turn the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth features off. They just disconnect from your current service. So if, for example, you are in a location where you're getting unreliable Wi-Fi, you can go into Control Centre, tap the Wi-Fi button, it will disconnect from your current Wi-Fi network. If it's an iPhone, it will use cellular data instead. And as soon as you have moved enough away from where you were, it'll automatically turn Wi-Fi back on again in the hope that you're no longer in range of the Wi-Fi net that's causing problems, which is actually a far better mode of operation rather than to remember to go and turn it back on again and forgetting that you're using cellular data for ages, which is what was the problem before. Bluetooth similarly will just disconnect from your current Bluetooth devices if you don't want to use them anymore for now. And interestingly, those have exceptions. They keep supporting Apple's features like AirDrop, Apple Pencils with an iPad, those sorts of things that use Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, so that's independent. These controls, which look like they're currently full white, are actually sliders, so you can slide the brightness up and down, which of course you can't see on the projector screen, but on my screen it's getting dimmer and brighter, and that's the volume control for that one, so I just slide it, if it will let me. Oi! I won't while I'm on the projector. That's what's going on there. So the row down the bottom is the standard stuff, which was the flashlight, except flashlight now has multiple levels. If you tap and hold on it, you can have bright, and brighter, and I think on more modern models it gives you different shades as well. You get red and white settings and things like that. The timer, you can adjust the start time by tapping and holding on it. The calculator is just the calculator. The camera, you can tap and hold on that and you have immediate access to several shortcuts, so that's quite handy. The second row up, I've added extra buttons here for screen recording. Do not disturb while driving. If you turn that one on, it automatically detects that you're moving fast enough to be in a car and stops notifying you about anything. So you won't get text messages interrupting you while you're driving, that sort of thing. There is a optional stopwatch, which just takes you into the stopwatch feature in the clock app. I don't think that does anything with it. And there's actually a built-in Apple TV remote. If you have an Apple TV, you can control directly from the control centre on your iPhone. The screen recording feature is quite useful. You can use that to capture everything that's on the screen of the iPhone. It just basically creates a video. You start recording and it does a countdown and it records what you're doing and then it saves it to your camera roll. So you can actually use that as an example for if you're having trouble with something, for example, you can record a sequence, or if you want to demonstrate something to somebody, you can record it. And interestingly, if you have the right software, which I have got installed, it now has the ability to record your screen and communicate using a third-party app with somebody else and actually send your screen to them. So I have the software at the other end of this, so if somebody needs technical support with their iPhone or iPad and they're running iOS 11, I can actually, if you install this app, I can actually now remotely see what's on your screen. I can't control it, but I can at least see what you're doing and talk to you on the phone at the same time and hopefully talk you through the process of whatever the problem might be. So that's potentially useful. There's more things hidden behind tap and hold, which I've been doing, and if you have an iPhone 6S or later, the 3D touch feature does this as well, not just tap and hold. So if I tap and hold on that one, there's actually a couple more there. There's a AirDrop and a personal hotspot setting hiding underneath the connectivity panel. If I go into settings, you can see all the configuration options for the control centre. There's a new control centre section there. And you can customise controls and specify a list of all the settings which you want to have direct access to, and you can also reorder them, so you can decide which order the ones in the bottom rows appear. So I've got currently I found 4 things that I thought I might use to make it line up nicely, but there's other ones there as well. You have a browse through that at your leisure. Voice memos, wallet, alarm, low power mode, those sorts of things. What else can I think of? off the top of my head. Drag and drop is a bit hard to demo on the phone, so I won't do that. That's iPad. QuickType keyboard, don't think I particularly care about that. Files, yeah, I'll do it on the iPad, it's easier to see. Yeah, there's quite a few new camera features and things and software, but it depends on the model you've got, and my phone doesn't have most of the new hardware, so I can't easily demonstrate that. Oh yeah, messages looks a little bit different. Let's just show you that. You may recall they added an app store for messages, so you could actually have apps doing weird things like adding stickers to messages. They've now got a permanently displayed banner along the bottom here which shows you all of your installed apps that support messages directly, so you can easily get to them and see them rather than them being buried behind a button, which is where they were before. So that's just a convenience thing if you want to use any of those additional apps that are going to modify your messages. But if you don't want to, they're just wasting space on the screen. Apple Music. There's new features in Apple Music. AirPlay 2 is a bit tedious, so I can't demo that. The lock screen's changed a bit. Swiping left from the home screen gives you pretty much the same as display as before. Swiping down gives you the new notification screen, which is actually the same as the lock screen. So it doesn't have a separate notifications as it did before. So it's actually it's got a unified interface for now for the lock screen. And it actually says press home to open just to confuse me because it isn't actually locked. I can swipe up and it will go away. Mentioned that. I noticed that maps look slightly better. Unfortunately, it still does not show the Kapiti Expressway. Only been, 8 months since it opened?
I've got it online.
Not on Apple Maps, you don't. It's in Google Maps. It has been in Google Maps since May. It has not been in Apple Maps. I have already submitted a map error request to Apple. I've talked to a friend of mine, my friend who works at Apple, and asked him if he can put a word in the right ear, and nothing's happened.
The latest news is they're very embarrassed because it's going to have to be resealed.
Yes, I saw that, yes. Yep, that's actually quite a cute feature. Okay, so unless there's any iPhone-specific questions, the main thing to watch out for, as I mentioned in my article, is if you haven't yet upgraded to iOS 11, you need to be aware of apps that you may have which won't be compatible with it, because they've dropped support for a bunch of old ones that are only 32-bit. Now, if your device is already running iOS 10.3 or 10.3.1 or 10.3.2, etc., you can go into Settings, General, About, Applications. Now, you notice my Applications line there, if I just scroll that up to the top, so you can see it, it says 201 with a chevron pointing right. The 201 is the total number of applications that I have installed. If you see the chevron, it means that there's a further thing to the right. If you don't, it means you have no applications that are affected by this. But if you do, you tap that and it shows you a list of the applications you have installed which are not compatible with iOS 11. So I have deliberately left those 3 apps on here just so I had them to demo. I don't actually need them anymore, so it doesn't bother me that they're not working. So if you have a list of apps, eventually the developer may update them, in which case there'll be a message there saying an update's available, but it will just show up in App Store as normal. If it doesn't, then any apps in that list simply cannot work on iOS 11. So you want to have a look in iOS 10.3 so you can find out which apps you may have which are basically 2 years old or older that haven't been updated in that whole time. The developers probably abandoned them by now, but there have been rare occasions in the last few months where somebody did actually update them. So if I try and run one of those, just to give you an example, if I find it, find quick math, there it is, you get a message like this. Quick Math needs to be updated. The developer of this app needs to update it to work with iOS 11. Learn more, I think, takes you to a support article. OK means it doesn't actually run. Whereas in iOS 10.3, it'll warn you similarly to that the first time you run it, saying this application may slow your device down, needs to be updated for iOS 11 compatibility, but then it doesn't bug you about it anymore. But you simply cannot run it at all on iOS 11. Okay. Also worth noting, Apple's already released the iOS 11.01 update, which fixes a few bugs. Not obvious which bugs, apart from compatibility with Outlook.com, which is one of the annoying timing ones that they happened to have a bug in the first release. Okay, any further iPhone queries? Otherwise, I'm going to pop my iPad on here because that's more interesting. The iPad has a whole bunch additional new features. Don't want to drop that, so let me just slide you down here. I need my Apple Pencil, and I'm going to initially concentrate on the features that do not require an iPad Pro, because some of them do. It's a bit hard to tell which are which. So I'll plug that in here. We open you. I'll just do this on its thing here and unlock. Right, okay, so iPad. First point, the dock looks different. You'll notice down the bottom of the screen it's got a very Mac-like dock with more apps on it than it had before. You'll also notice there's a dividing line about halfway along. That dividing line is similar to the function on the Mac version of the dock. The things to the left are things you have put on the dock. The things to the right are automatically put there and maintained for you, and they show you the last few applications that you've actually used, so you can quickly get back into those ones. If you want to put things onto the dock, you can simply pick them up with your finger and drag them down and insert them. And you'll see as I do a few more of these, you can have quite a few things there. And I think it gets up to about 13. These get smaller and make more room. One other point is you'll notice that names aren't there on the dock, and that was actually the case on the iPhone as well. The assumption is the things on your dock are things you're using often enough you don't need to know what they're called because you'll recognise the icon. So they don't bother to display the name anymore. It also solves the problem of what to do as the icons get smaller and smaller, because then you can't read them if the text gets too small. So I'll just drag those back off again, theoretically. Just have to hold it for a fraction. Since I don't actually want those ones on my dock, or that one. That was roughly what I started with. Okay. App Store.
Your emails, you 8,000 emails and opens it.
Well, that's mostly because I've got a pop account and
Yeah.
I can't do anything useful with them on the iPad, yeah. Once I delete my last pop account, they'll all vanish. Though I do have 13,000 unread email messages on my computer, mainly because I'm subscribed to multiple mailing lists and I don't read all the messages on them, and I just don't bother marking them as read. So I totally ignore that number. It means nothing to me. Nothing hiding on there? No, okay. So the big difference, have I got this, is the multitasking. You swipe up from the bottom of the screen and you get the new multitasking view, which gives you the control centre across the right-hand side and all of your recently used apps across the left. So that, again, you have a customisable control centre, again with the slidable brightness control that you can't see on the screen up there. Pretty much the same controls we saw on the iPhone. So again, I can control cellular data with this. This is a cellular iPad, all those sorts of things. Lock and rotation, night mode, all those things, and I can customise it if I want to in settings. So that's all pretty much similar to the iPhone. One area what's a good demo? Let's use Mail. So here's Mail sitting in its 3-pane view. If you wanted to use the slide over or split view features in previous versions, you slid the screen across on the right and it gave you a list of all the applications you've run recently. You need to start scrolling down to find the one you want and hit the one you want, which is a pain. What you can do now is anything which is in your dock, you simply swipe the dock up from the bottom of the screen, and I'm still in the app, but the dock is now visible on top of it, and I can pick up one of the apps I want and drop it across the side. And then there I've got photos sitting alongside Mail. So it's in the way right now, so I'm just going to push that across the other... No, I'm not. I haven't quite got the gestures right on this yet. I want to pick this up and drag it across the other side. There we go. I want to write an email message, and again, that's in the way. So I'll send that to me. That'll do. That one. And I want to insert a photo. Let's get this keyboard out of the way. Let's find our new cat. There she is. And I can find that photo, and I can just pick that photo up and drag and drop it. Like so. And if I want to get this out of the way... No, that's not. I haven't quite got this gesturing right yet. I find it a bit fiddly, working out how to slide this slide over feature. That's not what I want to do. I'm trying to slide it sideways and it doesn't seem to want to do it for me. There we are, I got it. Push it out of the way. I haven't quite worked out where to aim yet, so it's a matter of getting used to it. Sorry, what was the question?
Is it a kibble or a cat or a kibble?
Well, she's 3 years old, so definitely a cat. Yes. But anyway, that was just demonstrating drag and drop. The other thing I can do is I'll delete draft. If I bring that back up again and again slide the photos in there, if I tap and hold on that, it actually puts you into split view mode, and then again you can drag again I have trouble aiming right at this thing. I haven't quite worked out what the magic is. I think you go sort of push up a bit, that's what it is. Then you can adjust the split view sideways, so you can actually have the two apps side by side. Yep. It requires a sort of like a tap and slide up slightly gesture to make sure it knows which bit you're talking about. I find it a bit cumbersome because I'm not used to it yet. But I can just pull that down and push it out of and I should be able to just go swipe sideways. But again, I can't quite pick it up. So anyway, I got it that time.
David, if you doing a new email and doing an attachment like a photo, then you want to attach something else, can you open another one on top?
Yeah, well, if I've got, say, photos
Yes.
alongside.
Document. Would you have to get rid of that photo thing, or?
Well, okay, let's try this. If I go back out here again and find notes. Let's say I've got some notes that I've been accumulating somewhere. I'll explain that one later. Yeah, there we go. So if I want to have that text, for example, and I want to drag and drop it into a new email message, what I can do is, first of all, bring up Mail, create a new message, come back here and swipe up. Come on, swipe up. Swipe up. Why won't it let me swipe up? Go away. Get out of the way, keyboard. Thank you. Yeah, okay, you have to take the keyboard down. That's a new thing I've learned. I can now pick up notes, drag it to the side. I can come in here, I can double tap on there, do a select to copy all of that text. I can go pick up the text, drag and drop it into there. I can now push, I actually want photos, so let's just bring photos up instead, and I want to insert, I put it in the wrong place, but it doesn't matter. I'll pick up a different cat photo and drop that cat photo in there. And I actually want this text to be somewhere else, so let me just pick that up and drag and drop it down there, which is where I actually meant to put it, and then go select all. No, I'll delete that and actually accidentally put it in the wrong place. So you can sort of see once you get the hang of it, the dragging and dropping stuff around is actually quite easy. But it's a matter of just getting used to the gestures and things. One related feature which I found quite interesting is if you want to rearrange the icons on the main screen, this is a good way of demonstrating the multiple selection feature. If you tap and hold long enough for things to start jiggling and start dragging this one, I can use another finger and say I want to also select those ones. And now I've got 7 things I'm dragging at once. I don't actually want to do that, so I'm just going to leave them where they were. So you can actually do multiple selection. It involves a 2-finger gesture. So you start to drag and you tap other things, and it works in various apps as well. If you want to pick multiple photos, for example, you can drag and drop.
And it work in notes as well. You could open all your notes and drag 7.
Probably. That I'm less sure about. Should be able to, I don't know if you can pick up an entire note. You can actually, so that should work. I should be able to do this, go into Mail, drag and drop that note there. Yep. Yep, so you can actually, again, doing 2-finger operation, I can start an operation, do something else with the other hand or with another finger if I can reach far enough.
Yeah, or has to bring out a third arm.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, so I won't send that to anybody, that's going to confuse whoever I send it to, it's completely random. Let me just have a quick glance at other features here. So the drag and drop and your files is the other major one. So you'll notice on the bottom, roughly in the middle of my dock, I've got the Files app. So Files gives you a single place where you can access all of your online storage buckets. So I can access iCloud Drive, I've got a Dropbox account. I haven't actually done that yet. Yeah, I can't be bothered fixing that at the moment. Box, no, I haven't actually set it up yet, so but it has got on my iPad as well. But iCloud Drive already works, so you can use this to basically pick files from any of the places you've stored things, and there is a facility there for storing some things on your iPad. However, it needs support from applications to support that. So for example, right now Pixelmator is the only app I've got which has access to that feature. So I can use that to access any documents that are on my iPad that Pixelmator has given me access to, but I can't access a document that's in, say, Goodreader, because Goodreader hasn't been updated to support this feature. So you have to pick and choose which apps you use to get access to
Does
this.
that iPad support a desktop hard drive?
No. You can have wireless storage devices that actually act as a file server, like a wireless hard drive, but that's like you have an app running on the iPad which accesses the contents of it, and the same as some server accounts. So files is quite a handy way to sort of look at all your files in one place. It's basically an extension of the iCloud Drive app that was already there on iOS 10, but it now supports multiple services. Like I said, I forgot to set it up in advance, so I had to fiddle around to get it to work properly. I imagine Google Drive, same problem, yeah. I can't be bothered doing that because I have to go and look up my password and it's too complicated. So the dock, I've told you, the multitasking. Oh, yeah, the other nice feature of multitasking is if you tend to use a pair of apps together all the time, say for argument's sake, I tend to use mail and photos a lot. You can bring up photos, put it on the side, and then dock it, if I can aim right, here we go, so they're actually paired as in split view. If I now close mail or photos and then open either one of them again, it remembers that I was using that pair. So those two are now effectively always in split view until I tell it not to be. And if you come up into the multitasking view, you'll see that's reflected up here. So this one at the top is actually showing you mail and photos together. So it remembers the connection between the two apps until you undock them and slide it off the screen, and then they're back independent again. Drag and drop I've shown you. Apple Pencil's quite cute. This is where you need an iPad Pro. If I turn my iPad off, you can probably see this better on the iPad itself. I simply tap the screen with an Apple Pencil, and it wakes up again, theoretically. No, it's not doing it for me again. This is inconsistent. It should work, but I've used it before. If I create a new note, is it actually supporting the pencil? Oh, well, that will explain it. The pencil's not actually in connection with the iPad, so let's just fix that. I'll have to unplug the screen for a moment. In fact, I think it may not work.
You've got to pair the pencil first.
I think it may not work while I'm using the screen. This could be a complication. Let's just pair it again. It should have paired it now. Yes, okay, that's working now. So now I can do it. Right. Sometimes it forgets my pencil for no obvious reason. So if I just put that aside. Now let's do it. Plug you in. Again, so you can see what I'm doing. And turn the iPad off. And then touch the screen with the pencil. And still not doing it. Okay, I think this is the projector confusing the issue. Nope, it's not just not doing it. What's supposed to happen is, and this has failed for me at Wellington as well, is that it's supposed to basically act like a notepad. You tap the screen with your pencil and it immediately creates a new handwritten note. And I was able to use this on a previous occasion, which worked. Where was it? There. Basically, had scribbles all over the screen while I just wanted to write something down and not have to worry about hunting and picking on the keyboard. So I just scribbled notes while I was working on something. Right, now it's just inconsistent. So I just did all of that, just writing down notes on some speed tests that I was doing with various devices. And the interesting thing is, you'll notice that this note is called speed test. It's recognised my handwriting. So, where's it gone? It's actually picked up that scribble at the top there and recognised it says speed test. So it's doing a pretty good job of reading messy handwriting. Where was the other one I did? I don't recall whether I actually ended up doing. Did I keep the second one? No, I didn't. I had another one I started doing, and again, it recognised the text, and it was even harder to read. It had something like, it was actually a series of symbols, and it thought it was a word, and it looked like it was OOM or something like that. So it's actually effectively got the Newton's feature of handwriting recognition built into it now. The other thing you can do with an Apple Pencil is if you want to start annotating things, you can do something like take a screenshot, which initially shows up in the corner. You tap that to bring it up to full screen, and then you can use either your finger or a pencil to scribble all over it. I want to know what this is. But I can do it with my finger as well, so if I change colour to blue, and I don't want that one anymore, or green, I like that one.
I take it you can change the thickness as well.
Oh, that's using there's also a sort of a brush. Obviously, this is a silly example, but and it's a pencil which I can just draw with. That's actually easy with a pencil. That's in green at the moment, which isn't very helpful. Let's try black. Yep, and that's the eraser, so I can rub things out. And that's a lasso, so I can select something. I think. Not sure what that is. I haven't had a decent play with it yet, but you can basically annotate screenshots, photos, email messages, anything like that, PDFs, and you can just basically draw on the screen using an Apple Pencil, and some things you can do with your finger as well.
Do you save that?
Yes, and you can, like, for example, somebody sends you an email with a photo attachment or a PDF or something like that, and you want to mark on it something you want done, you can highlight the bits you want corrected and send it back to them straight away from inside mail. So it all becomes an attachment layer.
In photos, if you write over the whole screen,
Well, at least the photo, not
do you
the.
have to resave that again?
I think it modifies the photo and it adds an extra layer on the photo.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that's a new feature is in Notes. I don't want that anymore, go away. There is if I create a new note, where's the document scanner hiding? Have you tried using that document scanner feature, Shane? How do you do it? I think you go. Yeah, scan documents.
Oh, it's the bottom plus.
Yep. So, well, let me just find my document here. That's close enough. Notice it's just turning yellow. It's recognised something there. I go take a photo, and it drag near a corner. Oh, see, I missed a bit. Let's just retake that. I just chopped the corner off by accident. So if I have the whole thing visible, and go take a photo, and then adjust the corners, that's about right there. Just do that, and go keep scan, and it lines it up for you even. So save. And I can now come in here as a scanned document, and it's done a reasonably good job of lining it up square for me. And if it was something which it actually had like a form I had to fill in, for example, you could take a scan of it, and then you can pinch to zoom as required, and you can draw on it with an Apple Pencil. So you can actually write up a document. So I can come along here and I can go. I want to mark this up somehow.
Can you sign it?
That's moving it. I want to go plus. No, cancel. I don't want to do that. I want to go. How do I adjust it? That's that bit. So how do I actually mark it up is what I want to know. That's the colour adjustments. That's the cropping tool. What's that do? Markup, there it is. Found it. So now I have the same markup tool. So I can say, I want this to be, actually no, let's undo that. I want this to be blue, please. And I would like that bit to be red. This is a sort of a demo of what I would like improvements to be made to this one. And I can then use the pen and say, hi David, looks good. And then go done, and that's now part of the scan in effect. You can see it's there, and I can go send, and I can mail it to somebody. So I scan a document I've drawn on it, and I can now send that as an image to somebody. So
Camera is an official document. You could do draw something out and sign it, say I signed it.
yeah, well, like it goes as a PDF, so it's a PDF with annotations on it, basically. So that's potentially useful for anything which you need to physically sign. It's easier with an Apple Pencil. Some of those features can be done without an Apple Pencil and therefore without an iPad Pro, but you're going to get a lot more precision by being able to use a pencil to draw on, actually have finger sharp point.
Where does it live?
What do you mean, where does it live? It lives on the iPad.
There is a place to,
The pencil?
yeah.
Oh, well, the pencil itself, you'll notice mine's not normal white colour. I've got a third-party magnetic sleeve on my Apple Pencil, which means that it attaches itself to the side of the iPad. And the other one related to that is that Apple now has, for the new iPad Pros, they have a folio case which has a slotted holder on the top for the pencil, which Shane's got. So it actually clips the pencil on top.
You do one where it actually goes straight in.
It's a third-party one, actually, isn't it? Yeah. Yep. So there are a variety of them now. But I actually, this magnetic thing is so good, it just sort of sits in the front of my iPad normally. So but since I got this, I've not yet lost my pencil. I almost lost it once prior to that because there wasn't any way to attach it. So
The other cool feature with that one is this part here is magnetic. So as soon as it goes over,
Yep.
it goes around the pencil as well. So it actually stays with it.
The question was, David.
Yep.
That PDF that you, well, the scan you did and.
Yep.
You know, should you be signing it as a document, is that then uneditable?
no, of course, so you send it to somebody else, they can then go and edit it again. It's not.
So
It's
you
not.
signed it.
It's not digitally signed to say this has not been modified any further. That's something you would need a third-party app which can actually go through the extra steps of doing that, which I'm sure that Adobe has got, for example. They would actually have they take it one step further and say, now that you've marked this up, they can then digitally sign it, and then it's authenticated as having come from you in that state.
I've actually worked it. It only works when you have that screen up.
Doesn't work on you have to unlock the screen first.
You
The
have
trick
to
was,
actually go in there.
I had to actually open the screen up so that it was lit.
Yes. So
And now I tap on it.
Just tap again. Or just
Now it's timed out.
give it a double tap.
There it is.
Yeah,
Now it's working. So, right, that was the step I missed. Thank
You
you.
have to actually physically go to that,
Um,
and then it actually opens up.
Yep, if I go close that, I can unlock the iPad, go into notes, and go into, don't need that anymore. How do you go back out of this again? This is not the normal view. What's the, that takes you out of that. There we go. There we go. Notice it actually has called that note hit here. It's recognised I wrote hi there, just didn't recognise the space in between the middle. So it's picked up that scrawl that says hi there. So its handwriting recognition is pretty good. Augmented reality, Apple Pay, don't care. So